Welcome to Let's Talk Near Death, the podcast show where we talk about life, death, and experiences somewhere in between. I'm Kirsty Salisbury, the host of the show, and join me as I talk to everyday people with not so everyday experiences. Let's talk near death.
And I realized I had lost contact with my body. I couldn't tell my hands to do anything. They wouldn't budge, not a finger, nothing. And I thought, oh, that's strange. And all of a sudden, I was in a different place. And I'm in a bright white light. And I needed to calm down. And I was just so upset. And they're down there discussing the fact that Mom has died. And then once I felt my feet, then I just knew I was back.
Today I'm chatting with Pegi Robinson, who had a near-death experience through a tubal ectopic pregnancy. Pegi, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
I was 25 years old. It was 1986. And I had 3 little boys at home, and I was pregnant for twins. I was 2 months and already starting to show.
Yeah.
I was very excited because I had been sterile for 5 years. My first husband, he had made me get my tubes tied when I was 20. And I had found out I could get that reversed. So 1 month after I had the reversal surgery, I was pregnant. And then to find out I was pregnant for twins, I was just beyond excited. Right after Easter, I started having some pain. And I called my doctor, and I was worried that it was a tubal pregnancy because he said that every woman has a 5% chance of tubal, but with this surgery, he said it would give me 5% more. So I'd have 10%. And I thought maybe that's what it was because I had some pain in my lower hip bone area. And he said, no. He says, I did an ultrasound. Both babies are in the uterus. So a couple of days went by, and the pain got so bad I could hardly walk. I called him again. He reassured me. He says, it's just your growing uterus. It's fine. By the end of the week, I couldn't walk at all. I had so much pain. So I had my husband take me to the hospital, which is an hour away. And as we were headed there, the pain got worse. And then all of a sudden, it faded in such a strange way that I felt wherever the pain was going, that's where I was going. And I couldn't verbalize that. It was just a very knowing kind of feeling that came over me. We got to the hospital, and I went in, and I told the nurse, I said, I think it's a tubal pregnancy. I feel like I'm going to either vomit or pass out. So she put me in a wheelchair, had my husband stay and sign the papers. She handed me a little blue bowl, put it in my lap in case I got sick. We just started down a long hallway to find me a room. And I thought, oh, I'm going to be sick. And I tried to pick my hands up off the armrest because I wanted that bowl to vomit in. And I realized I had lost contact with my body. I couldn't tell my hands to do anything. They wouldn't budge, not a finger, nothing. And I thought, oh, that's strange. And then I thought, oh, I'm not going to throw up after all. I'm going to pass out. I'm going to pass out right now. And my head went down, and I felt it hit my chest. And all of a sudden, I was in a different place. There was this loud noise, like a rocket just launched, and I was in it. And this strong wind speed going straight up through space. And, with 3 little boys at home, I thought, I got to run away. I got to find my way back to my boys. And within seconds, I knew I was so far up in space, I would never be able to find my way back. And I thought, oh no, I messed up by having that surgery. I've died. And my boys are going to be raised motherless. And that's all I could think about. And then through this loud vibration noise, and it was dim. It was kind of like standing room only, and just being wished way high up. And there was like a knock every now and then. It kind of made me feel like I was going up higher and higher. And then all of a sudden, I am completely still and quiet, the exact opposite of the fast, speed and movement, noise. It's quiet, still, and I'm in a bright white light. And if it had been a room, it would be floor, wall, ceiling, and in the middle, it wasn't just like light as we see it. The middle was full of the light, and I was basking, just like hovering still in the middle. And I looked down and I couldn't see me. I felt just like me, but I couldn't see me. And I thought, wow, this must be heaven. Am I going to be here for eternity like this? I mean, where is everybody? This isn't what I expected to heaven to be.
Was there any kind of fear? Did you feel alone or afraid?
I felt alone. Fear as in just that because I was alone and I didn't understand why this was heaven. This isn't what I was always told heaven would be.
Yeah.
It was just alone in this light. And I'm thinking, did I do something wrong that I don't remember?
Yeah.
Like I'm going to be punished. And so I just was curious, I just landed in this new place trying to figure it out. And then up ahead, a little bit to the right, I saw an outline of a person, just like up the arm, shoulder, the head. And I was trying to make it out, like, who is that? And I seen it was a whole panel of these people standing shoulder to shoulder. I could never make it any more than just an outline. I never saw any details. And I thought, who's there? And then my eyes scanned, as if I had eyes, because I feel just like I have everything. And I see one sitting up front and center. And I thought, that has to be God. And I thought I had a complaint department. I had something I could say, heck no, I won't go. I refuse. I have kids to raise. And I threw a tantrum.
Yeah.
And God talked to me telepathic, and everything was immediately understood. He let me know that basically I wasn't the boss there, that he was. I didn't control things there, and I needed to calm down. And I was just so upset because I had been abused throughout my childhood, and the thought of who was going to raise my kids now really concerned me. I didn't trust my husband at that time to take care of the kids, and I was just, I can't do this. I can't leave them down there alone. I just felt like Earth was this big, the woods, and the monsters was going to come out and get them without their mommy there. And, I couldn't give up that protectiveness and just say, okay, I'm here. And then to my left, this scene opened up. And even though it's still white, it's like this colorful scene, like a movie screen appeared. And it showed me a scenario of this little boy throwing a big fit as they're checking out of a grocery store, and the mother and father standing there, and they're saying, no, you can't have that. And the boy was just, all upset, stomping a fit, trying to get his way. And I felt that was God's way of showing me, this is how you're acting. Wow. And that I need to calm down. Like as a young mother, that's something I would understand, that's pretty bad.
Yeah. Yes, you talked about how you were connected to the thoughts you're worrying about your children, who's going to raise them, what's going to happen to them. And then you're showing this example of a kid having a tantrum in a supermarket. Were there other concerns that you had, or was it really around your family and your children and
it was
the future?
All about my children, my children.
Okay. So you saw the scene of the supermarket. What happened next?
Then I thought, well, I've got to humble myself before God. I can't act like this, but I still wanted to get my way. So I thought I'll try something else. So I said, well, God, I know through being Catholic, because my husband was Catholic and I had come into their church. I know through being Catholic that you're omniscient. You can see into the future. So if you look in the future and you can tell me that my kids will be okay without me, then I agree to stay. But if not, I beg to return. And then I saw across from me, a physical me, screaming out all the abuses I went through. And it just come out in one scream and it was over. It's like God understood. I didn't have to go through the whole thing. It was like, bam, he knew. And that was my way of understanding it. He knows your past, And then I believe, like, granted a wish like the story of Christmas past, because then I'm going down and it's in the future, because I think I'm with Jesus, because there's a man on the left and I'm on the right, and I'm still at this point of reference in the white basking bodiless. And first I watched over here and seeing this panel of people. Then I watched over here and saw this scenario of the boy in the store. And then I saw directly in front of me, me spilling out this anger about, my past and why I was so scared for my boys. And then in the middle of the first two there's then I'm still here, but I see me from behind and I think it must be Jesus. We're headed down on top of our trailer and it's at night. And it's like there's no roof to the trailer because we can see right through without a problem. And the boys have a light on, a lamp, and they're down there discussing the fact that mom has died. That's how I know it was in the future. As I asked God, if in the future, the better off stay. And I saw the future. And my three boys was down there discussing the fact that mom had died. And my middle son, Jeremy's very sensitive. And he yelled at his older brother. And he said, I don't care that you say mom is dead. I want her back. And I want her back right now. And I felt his pain so enormous in my heart that I retracted and I'm back in the white light. But now, instead of this point of reference, I am in a human body crumbled at, I think it's Jesus' feet. I feel that panel of people still there, God's still there up front and center, and that Jesus is on my right, stand in front and look at him, that he's sitting beside God, and only see that as like a sense, like I sensed it. But I feel I see Jesus' feet and I'm at his feet and I'm crumbled at the floor of heaven in his white light. Because how I know I have physical body, because I see my hands come up as I'm sobbing and I accept responsibility that it was my fault, not God's, that I died. I had my tubes tied.
So getting your tubes tied led to the complications in the pregnancy, which then led on to you dying. So you're completely blaming yourself.
Yes, it's completely blaming.
How did God react to that, or Jesus, or who you were with at the time?
At that moment, I'm just sobbing, and I'm taking on all the responsibility that I had my tubes tied. I had them reversed. That caused a tubal pregnancy. That caused my twins to die. That caused me to die. That caused my sons to be homeless. And I'm remorsing and feeling so bad. And then it's like a wave. It was all taken from me. And I was left with a thought now, like I couldn't had with all those concerns in mind. Now I'm left with this next thought, which was more devastating. And as that thought come, I saw my hands come up towards Jesus as I'm crumbled on the floor. And I say, who else will teach them about you? And then I am back in that wheelchair.
Wow. Were you aware of traveling back, or it just happened?
There is a split second that I can see inside the fluorescent light on the ceiling and looking down at me with my head down and a nurse and another woman behind me. It's just a split second. It's kind of feeling like you got to go back. You got to get back in. Just do it. Just go. And I didn't talk about that for a long time. I always said then I'm back in that wheelchair. But there's always this little thing, this little spot in between that I can remember this, seeing it and thinking, you got to get in there. And when I come back, my hands were still in the armrest, my head was down. And the first thing that came back was my hearing. I could hear the nurse talking to this other woman now behind me. I don't know when she come along. And I thought, she don't even know her patient just died. She was too busy socializing. I mean, I can remember my thoughts just if I just had them. And I thought that, and then I felt my hands on the armrests. I felt that I had contact with my body again. And then I felt a warmth go down through the trunk of my body. And somehow I knew once I felt my feet, I could hear those words, once you feel your feet, or once I felt my feet, then I'm all the way back. Like I knew somehow. And then once I felt my feet, then I just knew I was back. And I thought, my first thought was, what the hell was that?
I'm sure. What just happened?
I never heard of near-death experience.
Yeah.
I didn't believe in hokey pokey stuff. If anybody talked about ghost stories or anything, I would walk out of the room and roll my eyes, And I thought, this never happened in the history of the world, is what I thought. And I thought I could never tell anyone, especially right now, because I needed my doctor to take me seriously because he hadn't all week. And I felt like I only had a small window of time to try to save my life. Like God gave me a second chance. And if I didn't succeed, I would be dead for good. And I felt that so strongly, but I couldn't tell anyone. And so they put me in a room, and I was just shaking all over, freezing cold. The doctor prepped me for DNC, he examined me, and then he had me sit up, and he looked at me, and he said, real serious, he said, "Peggy, it is not a tubal pregnancy. Your uterus is still intact. Why do you keep saying it's a tubal pregnancy?" I couldn't say a word. I could not tell him. And so he said, "Well, if it'd make you feel better, since you live our way," he says, "you can spend the night if you like." And so my husband went home, and the doctor went home. They put me in a private room, and I went to sleep. And I'm thinking I'm probably going to die in my sleep. But I thought, if I went home, my husband would go to work in the morning, and my kids would find me dead. So if I'm going to die, this would be the best place for me. I would wake up and have that sharp pain in my lower right hip bone, and I would get my bowl, and I would go to vomit, but I would wake up with it everywhere except my bowl, and this went on all night. And the nurse was getting tired of cleaning my gown, cleaning my bed. She's yelled at me, "Use your bowl." I said, "I think I'm passing out and vomiting, because I'm laying flat, and I feel sick. I feel the pain. I sit up, get my bowl, and this is what happens." And I thought, my gosh, what if I choke? What if I'm laying flat and I choke? All these things, I thought, I'm not going to make it till morning. Well, morning come finally, because I'd asked her to call a doctor, and she said, "No, he's asleep. I'm not going to wake him up." So morning came, they took me down to ultrasound, and I was so happy they did that. I was afraid they were just going to release me home and not check anything out. But they did an ultrasound, and the ultrasound technician, her eyes got so big when she looked at the ultrasound screen. She jumped up. She moved the screen where I couldn't see it. And when she jumped up, her chair fell backwards, and she didn't even care. She just ran to the emergency phone on the post and yelled, "Dr. White, stat," and ran out of the room. And I thought, well, I'm a gone. Whatever's going on.
You must have been terrified at that point.
Yeah, my sister was there with me, and I told her, and she met me in the elevator going down to ultrasound, and she said, "Oh, I wish I could trade places with you." I said, "No." I said, "You don't. The babies are dead. I'm dead." And that's what I told her. And so now she wouldn't believe me. She just giggled and thought, "Oh, Peg, And so the doctor come in and did the ultrasound, and he said, "Peggy," he said, "it's the worst thing imaginable. You have got internal bleeding filling your entire abdominal cavity clear up to your chest. We've got to get you into emergency surgery right now." And they told me after surgery, it was the biggest tubal pregnancy the hospital ever saw. The babies were growing and thriving. One was in the uterus, one was in the tube, and half in the uterus. It got stuck. And that's why on the ultrasound earlier, it looked like they were both. And he said, at my 6 weeks checkup, he said, "You taught me to listen to my patients over my machines."
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Wow. Can we go right back to the beginning? So you're in the chair, you rise up out of your body, you're aware that you're dead. You said you knew that you were dying.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you come back into your body and you know that you've died, but that you're alive again.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel any kind of relief to be back?
Astounded, grateful, but it's not over yet at that point. It was like if someone's chasing you and you hide in the bushes, okay, I got this far, but it's not over yet. It was kind of like that feeling.
Wow. And you talked about when you're up there that you described Jesus and God and this panel of people. Was there anyone that you recognized, any familiar faces? Were you connecting with them on any level, or were they simply spectators?
I call the panel of people, they were like obeying. They were quiet and not moving really and just listening. I felt like once I was going to stay because I felt it was my time. The answer was no. to not go back.
Did you have any kind of choice that it wasn't your time, that you could return or choose to stay?
I mean, I was pleading my case. I still had hope.
Yeah.
But once I felt that remorse, then my hope was all gone, and I accepted it. And, that's the thing I thought as soon as I got back in the wheelchair was I was just in heaven accepting it. And now I'm back. It was mind blowing.
Yeah. Does it make you want to go back to that place? Was it somewhere which you desire to return to?
At one point, a few years ago, after my kids was raised, and we had a lot of adopted children, and they became teenagers and was giving me a lot of trouble. And then some other people was giving me trouble, and I just started feeling like I couldn't do anything right. And I started thinking I wanted to go back, and I wanted to be, I've had a lot of miscarriages since then. They said they were probably all tubules that dissolved in my tube. One, I had to have surgery removed 7 years after that one. But I wanted to go back. I wanted to be with my babies because I felt everybody be better off without me. It was a depression. Plus, I was on Ambien. They ended up saying it was an Ambien situation. Before I heard of Ambien and the side effects. Yeah. You're kind of in this dream state. You're not really thinking clearly. They contributed to Ambien. But that day I did. I walked across the bridge, got my prescriptions filled, walked to the childhood home I grew up in, and I started taking some of those pills. And I woke up later just like I had a nap, and I felt fine. But then for a few weeks afterwards, I was in this like glowing state. I kept telling everybody, why would anybody be afraid of anything? There's nothing to fear. I was just in this weird state. And the hospital said there really wasn't that much medicine in me. So I never really understood. Well, my brother had found me there, and he had knocked me out cold. So, it might could have been some head injury thing going on or something. But that was about the only time I thought, I want to go back. I don't fear death now. All of my kids and my adopted kids, all of them are grown, and my kids are all fine. So if there last summer, I went in for, they thought I had a heart attack. They were doing a heart catheterization. They took me in. They said, now we might have to do this surgery or that. And I just waved goodbye to everybody. I was smiling because I was good to go. Either way, either side. And then I was just in a few minutes, and they said, you have a heart of a 19-year-old. You're good. Get out of here.
Cool. Yeah. Did you have a fear of death before your near-death experience?
Yes.
Quite a strong one.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I would wake up in a fear sometimes. I must have watched a scary movie because I always had a fear of being in the casket and waking up and I'm alive and nobody can hear me. It must have been some scary movie I'd seen. And so, I did fear death.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to church and I believed in heaven, but you're just not real sure. But after that, I mean,
Yeah. So tell us about that. Tell us about how your spiritual beliefs have changed or developed since your experience.
It didn't come overnight because I tucked it away because I died, and that scared me. And the next month I was pregnant again. And I thought, okay, I'm going to die this time. I'm not going to get that lucky. I wanted to be with my kids and raise them so bad, but I wanted another child so bad I couldn't choose. And the day I lost that miscarriage was about 2 months with the twins. We were at a family reunion, and I told everybody in line, it's a big, huge family. And I said, do you hear a child crying? And all of them said, no. I did. And I was the only one. And I followed where I heard his crying, and the crying stopped. And I felt led, and I ended up finding a little tiny boy drowning in a ditch, and he was barely moving. He was just kind of like, he was face down and just barely, and I pulled him up. And the moment I pulled him up out of that water, I had miscarried. And there started being strange things like that for a while. I just started being led and saving lives. One time we were going down the road, and I told my husband, pull over. I didn't know who lived there. I said, I got to go knock on that house. Go knock on that door. I didn't know why. Knocked on the door. It happened to be my ex-sister-in-law babysitting at her sister's house. And I said, what are you doing? And she said, I'm babysitting my nephew. I said, where is he? She said, he's in his room playing. I said, I need to see him. I went in that room and he was choking on Easter basket grass.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up took him to the bathroom and run water and turned him upside down and pulled the grass out. And then one day we're sitting here on the deck and it was real quiet. Usually I had the radio on. This day I said, I don't want the radio on. I had the boys down for a nap. And we weren't out there very long. And I heard a slight scuff that you wouldn't pay attention to, but something in me was saying, find out what that is. Mm-hmm. And so I went and looked, and my husband says, well, I'll go with you. He said, I don't hear nothing. And here had been a car wreck at the top of our hill. And a car had went off the other side of the road, hit a tree. 2 guys in the back were ejected down the cliff. And the 2 in front had broken necks, and they're laying their heads on the dash. And we called for help. And the 2 up front had they had to be revived several times en route in the life flight. But they told us later, you saved our lives. As with the drowning boy, and the boy choking on the Easter basket grass. And my husband and I were starting to hook each other, like, what's going on? Yeah. And then I just started remembering things. I remembered I had drowned when I was 5 years old, and I had never remembered it. And one night I was all stressed out, and I need to go relax. And I looked up at the night sky and the stars, and all of a sudden this big movie screen, kind of like that screen of that store that I was talking about with the boy throwing the fit. It was like that. And this screen opened up in the sky, and it was like this movie trailer from front to back, and it was my drowning. So I went the next day and asked my mom, did I drown when I was little? And she said, yeah, you did.
Wow. So you had no idea.
I had no idea, and I've never forgotten it now.
So did you have a near-death experience then as well?
Yes.
And was that similar to what you experienced the second time with the pregnancy?
I would have always said no, but I can see now the similarities in the fact a scene opened up when I was still under the water, and it was of a fishbowl, and it was in the past. And I was looking in a fishbowl, and I thought, how come those fish aren't afraid of that little treasure chest Mom put in there? Oh, I know why. But they're afraid of me, my hand or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it was because the fish knew something I didn't, that what was alive and what was dead. That told me, because I hadn't understood yet under the water, that I was dead. I had just was, choking and thrashing around, and all of a sudden it's like I woke up, and everything, instead of the muddy water, it was a bright, shiny, transparent green. And then I, floated down, the fish were bumping in me, and then that image. So that scenario, both times to my left, opened up in this scene to teach me something. Mm-hmm. So in that way, it's similar. And, in other ways, it was different. Another way it's similar is I hovered above the pond, and it was like I was directly above my body. I couldn't see it because it was down in the water, but it was like there's point of reference, and I'm hovering. So that was the same as the point of reference in the white light, where I'm suspended and just hovering there. So that was the same. The difference is I didn't have any heaven experience or going up in a tunnel or any future experience. I had telepathic things told to me, and everything was, pardon me? In the drowning, there was no panel. It was people I couldn't see, just letting me know things. Okay. Or all of a sudden a knowing. And, but then I heard, did not see, I heard a female voice in front of me, a distance, say, don't go yet. If they find you soon, you might go back. And I thought, and I cannot forget any of this now. Once I remembered it, it's just like in my soul memory or something. I thought, what is she talking about? Go back? That's not how death works. You don't go back. And so I learned these things and understood these things. And then I looked down and saw my mom and sister had come down, and they were sitting on a bed sheet, and I saw them down there, and I felt their conversation. I didn't hear it. I felt it. And then I looked on the other side, and I saw my brother. How I drowned is I went on a board, dog paddling, and he took my board once as a center, and I couldn't swim, and he was doing his laps on my board. That's how I drowned. And I seen him on my board, and I felt angry. And another way, it's the same as these emotions would come in, and then they would go out like a wave. Mm-hmm. And that's the way it was with Tubal too. If I'd have a real strong emotion, it would be taken from me like a wave, just brought back out. And it was like, you're over it. Just like that, you were over it. And then you could go to the next thought. But when I come to, my brother was carrying me over his shoulder back to the house, and my mom and sister was walking up ahead, and I started choking up water down his back, on my mouth and nose. And he said, Mom, can I put her down now? And she turned around and looked, because, he was carrying my dead body up. And they went off to the house and left me. So I'm standing alone on this road at 5 years old, like a drowned rat, sick as a dog, with this pond water in my belly. And I thought, I'm going to go back to that pond because I now have this wisdom. My family don't love me, and I have a choice. And I was about to go flying. I was thinking about which way to go. Yeah. And then as I started to think, well, that's what I'm going to do, the angel appeared. I now didn't just hear her, I saw her too. And she's hovering over the road. She's the shape of a young woman in a white light. And she says, no, don't. I said, why? They don't love me. And she said, you'll have a lot of love someday. And I said, when? And she said, when you have your own family, you'll have a lot of love then. So I went on home, and I was looking at a nursery rhyme book, A Woman That Lived in a Shoe. And I felt I had now a heart of a mother, and I understood my purpose. Though I couldn't put any of this together until I got older.
Did you come back with, you've talked about these, you've seen these things and being aware of people in trouble or in situations where they need help. Did you have any other senses which have been heightened?
Yeah, a lot of things strange have happened over the years that I didn't talk about very much. I might mention it here or there, but where I live in Southeast Ohio, you don't talk about these things, so they're going to think you're crazy or liars, the devil or something. I started looking back at when I was 16, I was kidnapped and raped, and I prayed real hard that I wasn't even on Earth. And all of a sudden, I was out in space looking down at Earth. I see my body, my hair was blown in the wind. It was just like you were at the beach, that beautiful warm weather, the warm breeze. Yeah. And I looked down at Earth, and I thought, how heavy that must be. But it's just as weightless as I am right now. We're just basking in this space. And once I started to think, oh, gosh, I'm 16. I don't want to stay up here forever. Am I going to go back? I knew my body was being right below. I couldn't feel a thing. I didn't hear a thing, see a thing. But I knew because he was approaching me just as I took off. And so when I came back from that and that was all over, I thought, was that a wish? Was that a prayer answered? I didn't have no way of understanding that. And that hurt with the investigation of the whole ordeal because I wasn't there and I couldn't talk about it. So that took me, decades to allow myself to remember that day, that night, to be able to remember the spiritual part of it. Because when you block out the bad, if there's a spiritual in there, it won't come to surface because you're putting both under the rug the same. And so, I look back at that and I thought, and then when I come back to school right after that in high school, I was told some things. I walked out in the cafeteria one day and I seen this guy and he says, you will be together someday. You have to go and become a better person first. Just watch him, observe, but don't approach. This is what goodness looks like. And, then after my divorce, 20 years later, I'm going down the road and this blue spirit comes right at me through the windshield. I thought, what? I'm going crazy. And it said, there's a guy down that road, has 2 girls and he needs you. And I thought, what am I supposed to do? Go knocking door to door? This is nuts. Yeah. And I thought, if that happens again, I'm going to go see a shrink. Well, about a month later, I met him, and it was that guy in high school that I was told we would be together someday.
And you remembered that?
It was a few months after we met that I remembered all that. But that night, before I went out, I had prayed that God arranged my marriage. I said, you're my father. I said, you arranged my marriage. And I was shown, follow God like a leaf follows the wind.
Yeah.
And just all I had to do was trust. And then I went where I was led that night, and it led me to him. And then later, the first time I realized it, something was really up with all this, is he gave me directions after we've been dating for a while to go visit his daughters at his house. And I'd never been to his house before. And as I'm going to these directions, I got the piece of paper, and I realized it's that same road. And I pull over, and I just start thinking, what's going on? I was just here, before I met him. And his voice said, there's a guy down there, and he has 2 daughters. And I thought, this is so strange. Nobody would ever believe this. Of course, so you don't tell things that people would never believe. You just keep them in. Well, then when I got older, and I retired from social work and counseling, and I feel like, I can speak my truth now, because what are they going to do to me?
Yeah, true.
It's not going to hurt my career.
Yeah.
My kids are grown. They're not going to take my kids from me.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. Have you ever wondered why this happened to you?
Yes. After my drowning, during my drowning, I was told, as I'm hovering over the pond, children are sent here to be loved. That is why God sends them here. And I thought, well, why are you telling me that? Because you just got done telling me my family doesn't love me. I was shown that. I didn't know that before. And now you tell me children are sent here to be loved? Well, that's not fair. And I've always kept this sense of injustice ever since then, this like high moral compass, because I took myself to be had the psychological testing before. I said, tell me if I'm crazy. Test me every which way you can. And they said that I have a very high moral compass. I cannot do anything I don't believe in. And we had 60 foster kids, and we adopted 10 of them.
60?
60.
Wow, that's so amazing. That's fantastic. So you're really helping the world. You're helping all these kids, and that's a lot of love. That's totally come true, hasn't it? All that love.
Comes clear all the time.
Yeah. Peggy, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. This is amazing. I love the clarity that you've got with this and how it's all come around full circle to give love, and it's all about love over and over again. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Let's Talk Near Death podcast show. If you've enjoyed it, please share it with your friends, tell people about it. I'd love to get these messages out there. You can also connect with me on Facebook at Kirsty Salisbury Official, and you can subscribe to receive updates for new episodes as they come about. I'm Kirsty Salisbury, and this is Let's Talk Near Death.